Yeah, vielen Dank. Then I switch to English. Thank you for the invitation, and it's an honor to show you some work from Rotterdam. I will start, and then hopefully it works out. So yeah, from Rotterdam. Next image, number 2. You see that well, Rotterdam is has a young population, so a lot of young people. We're also one of the poorest cities in the Netherlands, and we have an international population. So we have over 170 different nationalities, and half of the people have a non-Dutch background. Next, Rotterdam is also a modern city. We were bombed heavily during World War II, and we rebuilt our city in a modern way, so with mono-functional districts, and also not a lot of housing. So there's a big demand for housing to make it a more livable city. Next, you also see that we've got a fantastic river running through our city. And therefore, of course, we are also an important port city, the biggest port in Europe. And port and city come together, of course. Next, you see that Rotterdam, because of the port, but also in other parts, tries to keep the old character. So what we do is make that part of the development, but also add a new layer. So we've also added housing on top of national listed monuments, and also here with these warehouses, we put housing in some cases on top. So we always try to add a new layer and not just keep it as it is. Next, you see that already since about 2008, we've invested a lot in making the city more attractive. We've done that for well, looking at the programming of the city, and especially the inner city, and also adding more houses. Like I said, there was a lot of offices and a lot of jobs in our city, but not a lot of housing. Only one person living in our city, in the inner city, compared to over 3 jobs. And also invest in good architecture. So we've got an architecture policy as well. Next, you see that it's not only in buildings and big development, but also investing in public space and at the city at eye level, and try to introduce a more human scale, even though you are working with big buildings, but you can, of course, have an eye for the human scale. And we call that city lounge. So we transformed our Koolsingel Boulevard. Next, you see the image of a few years ago, where it was like a concrete haven for cars. And now we've transformed that. It just opened into a much nicer boulevard with a wide lane for cyclists, a lot of more trees, crates underneath the paving that can store its rainwater, and so on. So it's a modern boulevard. Next, you see that we still have a lot of challenges and more action is needed, like the energy transition, affordability, of course, also in Rotterdam, not only on housing, but also on workspace, the corona or COVID impact, the mobility transition, and climate change. And then it's not only heavy rain, but also drought. And because of our, well, the earth beneath our city, if it's too dry, then we get a chemical process and the public space is sinking, and that's not what we want, of course. Next, you see an image of nice public space, and that's to invest in making public space more green is really important for, well, heat island effect, rainwater storage, and so on. But what we also saw was that there was a big demand for good public space during, well, the last year during COVID. And we also saw that not in every part of the city there was enough public space. And we think as a city that this demand for good public space and green public space will stay. So it won't disappear once everything is open again. What we also did is we had an economical financial program, stronger, make Rotterdam stronger, to create more space for local economy. So more space, they could in public space, they could well, use some of the public space like you see here. And next, what we did as a city is during these COVID times, we said we will invest in 7 city projects, invest in better public space, in key places in our city. And by doing so, we think we show the right way. It is a public investment, but we also think it will be a Kickstarter for more development. Next is an example in the Maashaven, an old port basin, where we want to make a park. The next is the Westblaak boulevard, which is now dominated by cars, and housing is not permitted because of pollution and a lot of noise by all these cars, and we want to make it into a nice park. That is possible because we are already for years are rethinking mobility in our city, and we've done a lot of experiments. So you don't do this overnight, and these experiments really helped to get a debate going in our city, and also to help to make people living in our city and also the politicians to get used to the idea that a different way is also possible. Well, these are some images of the experiments. And next you see our Rotterdam mobility approach. So that is now a city policy where we do say that it's not about the cars anymore. We turn it upside down. Now, most important are the pedestrians, then the cyclists, then public transport, and then cars and logistics. And that from now on is key and the starting point for every development in our city. The strategy on the level of the city is also that we want to have a better balance everywhere between pedestrians, cyclists, cars, and public transport. But in the green area, and that is our, the Rotterdam Green Man, compared to the Berlin Green Man, is where we say that the pedestrians and the cyclists should be, it should be their domain. And that is also where the big boulevards are located. And what you see then is that we try to have a city center that stretches from on both sides of the river, of river banks, to make a city not of north and south of the riverbanks, but one Rotterdam, and also that we have multiple centers, but that are really well connected to the city center. And I'll show you a few examples, Hart van Zuid and Feyenoord City. So next is Hart van Zuid, which is a big redevelopment. There's a big shopping center there as well, and a metro station. But what we did first is invest in the right program. On the left, you see a swimming pool. It's an Olympic-sized swimming pool, but it's also a swimming pool where young kids learn how to swim. So it's also a local amenity. So in the heart of the center, there is a local community swim center. And on the right, you see a new theater, which is really nice, but it's also a library and a place where young kids can, or kids can do their homework, and students can do as well, but especially the high school age group can do their homework. So there again, in the heart of the center, you see that we've got this community amenities or services in the heart of the center development. Feyenoord City is another one. It's about a new stadium and also about adding a lot of housing and a nice green riverbank. But it's also what we're looking now is to create a place for young people, as we are a young city, and to make the public space, which is quite open because you need that for all the flows of people going to the stadium. But when there's not a game, to make it into an area, an urban stage where young people can can do all sorts of things, but create these small urban stages, because that is something we heard that is important for them, and also make public space really attractive. Last, in the inner city, a picture of a development, and there you see that we try to combine all these elements that we think as a city are important. So mobility, but also the mixed program, affordability, also about good architecture, but also using the local character, the cultural heritage, rainwater storage. There's an ingenious system of how to keep the rainwater, and of course adding more green. Well, that in short is a way how we think as Rotterdam that we can make a future-proof Rotterdam, which is especially good for all the people living in our city. Thank you.